The manga opens in an apartment where an ordinary boy sits glued to his screen, playing a hero character named Van in his favorite game. He's locked in the final battle, facing his greatest enemy, the one person he can never forgive, Zeke. But Zeke doesn't care. With cold confidence, the villain declares that he'll kill them all right there. His cruel words fuel the protagonist's anger even more. Determined, he fights with everything he's got and brings the final battle to an end. At last, he defeats Zeke and wins the game. He celebrates his victory, but suddenly collapses to the ground. As the loading screen appears, he blinks once. In the next moment, he finds himself sitting at a dining table. Confused, he looks around, unable to understand where he is. A man and a woman, looking kind yet strict, ask him why he's spacing out. They remind him that time can't be bought back with gold and tell him he's 12 years old now, so he needs to stop acting like a child. Their faces feel strangely familiar. Then they call him Zeke. He freezes at the name, looks into the glass, and his heart skips a beat. The reflection staring back isn't his own. It's Zeke, the villain from the game. Wish Soul, the RPG he was just playing, is renowned for its deep story and thrilling battles. Every character in it has distinct charm, but the most feared and hated of them all is Zeke Legius, the embodiment of evil. He attacks the hero's family, kidnaps the heroine, twists the Night Order into his personal army, and destroys an entire town without mercy. Realizing he's become that very monster, the boy panics. Fear rushes through him as he wonders if this is reincarnation. He moves his hands, testing his body, and realizes he can control it perfectly, except, well, it's not exactly his body anymore. Suddenly, a glass slips from his hand and shatters. Instinctively, he yells at the maids to clean the mess and not embarrass their master. His tone is harsh and arrogant. He meant to apologize, but the words twisted into insults. Shocked, he realizes that his voice and attitude sound exactly like Zeke's. He begins to think seriously. In this world, any words or actions that don't match Zeke's nature are being forced to change. Looking at his reflection again, he feels a chill. There's no doubt, he's truly become Zeke Legius. He tries to resist, but the more he struggles, the more his body moves and speaks like the villain. It's as if the world itself is pushing him to follow his fate. Like being stuck on rails in a video game you can't control. Terrifying, right? He remembers the game's story. No matter what happens, Zeke always encounters the hero and dies by his hand. If nothing changes, he'll share that same end. But then, a spark of hope lights in his eyes. Zeke becomes the final boss, stronger than anyone else. That means there's a chance to survive. His gaze shifts toward a hen in the garden. Smirking, he plans to practice on it. When he tries to attack the chicken, his strike misses and he falls to the ground. The chicken jumps on top of him and relieves itself right there. He lies still, thinking how utterly pathetic this is, and silently thanks his luck that no one's around to see it. Because honestly, being defeated by a chicken, that's a new low, even for a villain. While sweeping the hallway, one maid tells her colleague that Master Zeke has suddenly decided to learn swordsmanship. The other maid replies that no one can ever understand the whims of nobility. Zeke sits in his office, lost in her reading, when he comes across the best instructor, Blink. Nothing extraordinary at first glance, but Blink once served as a former Night Order regiment commander. Before meeting the protagonist, Zeke has to stop acting like a villain. He has no other choice but to become stronger and survive. For that, he needs training from the ex-knight. After a while, his assistant brings Blink before her. Zeke permits him to speak and tells him to raise his head. With respect, Blink says he came because his lady summoned him. He continues, saying that the request to serve as Master Zeke's personal instructor is a most rewarding offer. However, there are circumstances that prevent him from accepting. Surprised, Zeke asks what he means. Nervously, Blink explains that a year ago, his son fell gravely ill. He's been fully devoted to the boy's care, but the recovery has been painfully slow. His only wish is to spend more time with him, which is why he returned from the royal capital. Zeke realizes this is the reason Blink left the Night Order. Blink continues, saying the new position is close to his home and the working hours are shorter, so it feels like a blessing. But his voice breaks as he adds that his son's condition has suddenly worsened. Zeke interrupts, asking if money can't solve the problem. Distressed, Blink says they've consulted countless physicians, but the boy grows weaker by the day, feeling no pain yet unable to even move. Zeke tells him to explain everything in detail. Blink looks surprised, but her tone hardens. He orders Blink to speak. Struggling, Blink reveals that his son's condition has worsened rapidly. The boy is bedridden and barely able to breathe. every moment a torment for him. Listening quietly, Zeke finally says that the antidote requires the venom gland of a basilisk. At the mention of the basilisk, Blink freezes in fear, realizing it's about the legendary poison dragon. He warns that hunting such a creature is an enormous risk. Zeke glares at him, anger flashing in his eyes, and makes it clear that he's in no position to choose. He reminds Blink that his son is bedridden, every small movement causing unbearable pain. His voice sharpens as he points out how critical the situation is. If they fail, they die. But if they do nothing, the boy will die. It's a gamble, plain and simple. In a grave tone, Zeke tells Blink that if he wants to change this cruel fate, this is his chance. Blink falls to his knees, begging him to save his son. Confidently, Zeke instructs him to reach the designated location within 3 days. 3 days later, they arrive at the Torque Mountains. Blink asks when the soldiers will arrive. Zeke snaps, asking if he's lost his mind. He can't risk his valuable army over one child. Yet, deep down, he knows her parents would never allow her to take soldiers for such a mission. Panicking, Blink asks if he wasn't assembling troops a few days ago. Zeke answers coldly that it was entirely his own positive assumption. Terrified, Blink stammers that facing a basilisk alone is pure madness. Zeke tells him not to underestimate him, reminding him that he hasn't come this far unprepared. Stunned, Blink asks if he truly has a plan. In his mind, Zeke confirms it. Yes, he does. He's already figured out how to survive in this world. Drawing on the knowledge from his past life's game, he's determined to defy his destiny. Deep within the mountains, inside a dark dungeon, the monstrous basilisk waits in its lair for their arrival. In the forest, jelly-like creatures emerge from the water, and Zeke practices his sword on them. Blink urges him to keep up that fiery spirit. Zeke thinks to himself that a good teacher truly makes a difference. His form has improved immensely, and he silently thanks his coach. At this rate, he'll become a great swordsman. Suddenly, one of the creatures attacks from behind, but he slices it cleanly with effortless precision. Smiling, he realizes he's mastered the basic combo, cross-slash. Blink is astonished by his skill, amazed that he's reached such a high level after just one training session, yet he knows this is nothing compared to the battle with the basilisk ahead. That night, sitting by the fire, Blink wonders if he can truly place his trust in him. He knows Zeke isn't an ordinary child, and that his swordsmanship is remarkable, but he still can't figure out what's going on in his mind. He keeps slipping away on his own. Today, too, Blink wonders what he's really planning to do. Besides all this, he wonders if the story about the magic sclerosis illness and its so-called special antidote is even true. An arrogant noble, infamous for oppressing commoners and despising everyone, the eldest daughter of the notorious Lagius family. Suddenly, Zeke appears. Blink asks where he'd disappeared to, and he replies that he went to check on a few things. Then Zeke adds, almost casually, that he should get ready. Confused, Blink wonders what he means. Before Zeke can explain, a deep, terrifying roar echoes through the forest. Startled, he thinks it might be a basilisk, though its den is supposed to be far from here. Calmly, he admits he set up some incense designed to lure the creature in. Shocked, Blink realizes the campfire was incense and questions why he would do something so reckless. Zeke smirks, calling him foolish, and says it's better to bring the enemy to you than walk into its lair. Nervously, Blink agrees, but before they can act, the basilisk emerges from the shadows, towering before them. Instinctively, he steps in front of Zeke to shield him and requests him to step back. Stepping forward, Zeke says firmly that he's the one who needs to stay back and not move from his position. Blink stares in shock as Zeke begins counting down from 3 to 1. Suddenly, a loud boom erupts. The ground shakes and a burst of light flashes through the forest. Blink can't believe his eyes. It's a magic mine, a kind of set-trap magic item, a small bomb that automatically detonates the moment a certain amount of pressure is applied. Smiling, Zeke says it was just a cheap trinket, but more than enough for cannon fodder like this. Astonished, Blink asks if he prepared all of this himself, then wonders how he was so sure the basilisk would pass through this exact spot. Smiling to himself, Zeke thinks about how he's slain countless basilisks in the game. He knows this terrain and every predictable move these lizard beasts make like the back of his hand. When you've fought the same boss 50 times for loot drops, you learn a thing or two. As the smoke from the explosion clears, the wounded basilisk stands before them, snarling. Zeke tells Blink to stay back, make himself useful, and keep watch on the perimeter. Blink thinks that in combat ability, he's clearly superior, but when it comes to knowledge about basilisks, Zeke is far ahead. He wonders if Zeke really has some hidden strategy. He tells him that he understands, but he'll step into the fight if an emergency arises. Suddenly, the lizard lunges at Zeke, but he leaps into the air, effortlessly dodging it. He knows these boring attack patterns. Smiling, Zeke advises him not to be stupid enough to stand downwind. Blankly, Blink asks what he means. The lizard suddenly releases a powerful gust from its mouth, a poisonous breath that turns the air into a dense mist, hiding both of them from view. Blink blames himself, feeling he should have fought, silently apologizing to his son for nearly losing him. Then he feels water at his feet. Through the mist, Blink sees Zeke has created a wall of ice, formed magically in seconds. He's astounded. Smiling, Zeke reminds him that he never said he couldn't use magic. He was born with the natural gift to wield ice magic at the right moment. He tells Blink to stay quiet and just watch. Zeke stands before the lizard, raising his sword toward the air, and taunts it. His blade glows with ice as he prepares the creature for death. Revealing his plan, he explains that the beast had been lured by a water-rich terrain trap. Zeke strikes it with multiple attacks from his sword and executes his icicle cross skill, sending sharp ice-like walls bursting from the ground, piercing into the lizard. Blink watches everything in awe, completely stunned by his skill and strategy. It was a basic cross-slash combo, but combined with Zeke's signature magic, it became his ultimate finishing move. The terrain gave him a significant boost, and it worked perfectly. Zeke calls Blink over and says, "This is how it's done." He tells him that from now on, he'll work for him. Blink is left speechless. He kneels before Zeke and agrees with his lord. Meanwhile, a caravan is passing through the mountains when monsters suddenly attack it. Everyone is struggling to protect their lives, and most are injured. Among them, an injured man points out a girl named Atri and mockingly thanks her for all of this, calling her a cursed, abominable child. Blink starts Zeke's sword training every day. After the Basilisk hunt, when its body is brought to town, people are stunned. They can't believe the power that turned a beast into stone-like ice. One man, full of excitement, shouts that such a thing has never happened in the history of the guilds. Pointing toward Blink, he asks if this knight did it. Blink smiles and gestures toward Zeke, saying, "No, it was Lord Zeke." At the mention of Lord Zeke, the infamous Lagias demon child, the crowd freezes. Instead of praise, whispers spread. Shock turns to fear. People start calling him cruel to animals, accusing him of poaching for profit. Zeke is stunned by the crowd's comments. He wonders if people could really be any more pathetic. Deep down, though, he knows his reputation is already ruined. No matter what excuses he makes, people will twist his words, because that's what people do when they've already made up their minds about you. Still, after the Basilisk hunt, he finally gets the ingredients that could make a cure. Blink keeps praising his progress, but Zeke calls him crazy, saying the faster he learns, the faster Blink will become obsolete. Yet Blink never takes offense. Instead, he feels happy, looking forward to what's coming, and silently thanks him because his son is finally recovering. Zeke feels that Blink's opinion is the only one that truly lifts him up, but everything else still runs on its grim track. The same track that, by the game's end, leads to his death. He desperately wants to dodge that fate, to avoid his death flag. Suddenly he hears shouting outside. Two people are crying for help, begging at his father's door. They plead their case before him, while his mother frowns and says it's improper to make a direct appeal, skipping official channels. But the villagers fall to their knees, begging. They say their home, Alhi village in the Northern Plains, is under attack by a magical beast. They ask for reinforcements. The moment Zeke hears magical beast, his eyes narrow in surprise. One of the men explains it's a pack of breeze weasels. They're small, weak creatures, but they move in swarms and wield wind magic. Zeke's father shouts that he won't waste his resources on some poor village. He snaps that those people don't even pay taxes, so they shouldn't waste his time and should leave immediately. Zeke listens quietly, thinking this sounds like a classic comeback line only a Lagias would give. He recalls that the Northern Plains never appeared in the game, so there shouldn't be any real danger. But when he looks at the villagers' tear-streaked faces, begging for help, something inside him shifts. He can't turn away. Taking a deep breath, Zeke steps forward and says he'll go with them. He thinks that joining a subjugation could actually boost his reputation. After all, it's just a pack of weasels. It shouldn't be a big deal. He tells them he'll turn their pelts into matching scarves for those two villagers. His parents beam at his words, saying he's finally proven himself a true son of the Lagias family. His father agrees to send soldiers and tells Zeke to damn well better ditch the village and crawl back here the second things look dicey. Zeke feels secretly proud of being the good guy for once. And yet, his approval rating is still plummeting. As they head toward the village in the cart, Zeke asks what Blink's son plans to do. The boy steps forward, introduces himself as Luke, and thanks him for helping him stand on his own today. He says he's coming along to prove himself. Zeke feels irritated and senses something off about Luke, but he laughs it off. He asks what use a little boy could possibly be. Blink chimes in, praising Luke's resourcefulness, explaining that he wants to join the trip as an attendant. Luke continues, saying he aspires to become a knight himself one day and repay Zeke for his kindness. He reflects that Luke never appeared in the game when he played as the hero. He feels reality itself is shifting, the game changing far beyond his memory. Yet, as long as he stays strong, there's no reason to worry. Eventually, he agrees, which makes Luke happy. He promises never to disappoint Zeke. Blink, too, thanks him for his support. Luke looks at Zeke with surprise, thinking that his father calls him an incredible man, yet soldiers always have some negative tale about him. That's why Blink brought Luke along on this trip, to see Zeke's true side for himself. He keeps watching, certain that one day the truth will finally reveal who Zeke really is. Finally, they reach the village and go straight to the chief. Blink tells him that he can understand they're under attack by Bree's weasels, but questions if they aren't quite docile. The chief, crying, explains that they turned vicious suddenly and no one knows what happened. People from behind start making noise, blaming it all on a certain cursed child. An angry, broken man shouts that everything happened because of that cursed child, claiming she's been causing trouble ever since she was born and that misfortune has plagued them. The chief tells him to be quiet and reminds him to respect their guest, but the man, still furious, snaps that they shouldn't pretend to be ignorant. They all know why the girl was kept apart, and this isn't the first time the beasts have gone completely wild. Furiously, he inquires if the cursed girl isn't always somewhere nearby. Zeke is stunned and asks the chief which child they're talking about. The chief explains that 12 years ago, a white-haired girl was born in their village. At first, everyone thought it was normal, but when she turned 5, the village storehouse caught fire. No one knows how the fire started, yet somehow, the girl was found lying there in a peaceful sleep, completely unharmed. They questioned her endlessly about what happened, but she could only say she remembered nothing. Since that day, disasters have begun plaguing the village. Crops failing, wells drying, homes collapsing, livestock dropping dead for no reason, weather turning strange, and even the girl's own parents dying in the exact same instant. Zeke finds the cursed girl's story intriguing and tells the chief to bring her so he can lead them to the scene. The chief looks at him in surprise, and Zeke adds that she's perfectly suited for the task. A little pointer. The other man leads Zeke to a room where the girl is being held captive. When he sees the innocent child, Atri, her feet bound in chains, his anger flares. He tells the man to leave immediately. He hesitates at first, but seeing Zeke's fury, he flees. Zeke draws his sword and breaks Atri's chain, leaving the girl completely astonished. Before Atri can say anything, he interrupts, commenting on the strong stench. Embarrassed, Atri apologizes, explaining that she's a cursed child and the villagers won't let her bathe. Zeke glares and asks why she apologizes for the villagers' stupidity. Crying, Atri insists it's all her fault. She insists the disasters, the monster attacks, and her parents' deaths are all her fault. Desperate, she begs Zeke to end her life, saying the villagers are too afraid to act. He steps close, silences her, and speaks. He introduces himself as Zeke, undisputed heir of the Lagius domain, and says he's here to eliminate the beasts. He tells Atri that no petty village curse matters. He's a truth-driven warrior and a demon child of Lagius, with no time for her trembling fear. She's only useful as a guide to the attack site. Atri is stunned and asks what he means. Zeke smiles back and challenges her perception, asking if she really thinks a pathetic little curse could even touch a demon child himself. He asks her to go wash that grime off her face and find something that doesn't look like rags. A glimmer of hope sparks in Atri's eyes. In the northern plains, the small beasts are waiting for them. In the village, the soldiers are getting ready for the extermination. Tired, one mutters that it's pathetic. The Lagius demon child is burdening them over measly breeze weasels. Luke overhears and realizes the Lagius soldiers suffer from low morale and poor training. Before he can think further, villagers start muttering about the cursed child coming with Zeke. They warn each other not to meet her eyes. Luke is confused, but Blink explains it's just backward village superstition. The villagers are convinced she's the cause of every little misfortune. Eventually, Zeke stands before his soldiers and asks whether the entire troop has assembled. He then points to Atri, introducing her as their guide into the beast's territory. Everyone is shocked. Luke can't believe he'll use a little kid. He wonders if Zeke actually plans to use her as bait. As they leave, Zeke studies Atri. He thinks she's the girl they call the Taboo child, but the reasons given are almost entirely baseless. The well dried up because the groundwater path shifted. Failed crops result from continuous cropping issues. Her parents' deaths were accidents. None of it has anything to do with Atri. Yet something about this situation doesn't sit right. After a while, Atri points outside. She says it was around here where the breeze weasels attacked. Looking, Zeke sees an ordinary plane, but he feels a sudden gust. He orders everyone to hit the dirt. He wonders if it's wind magic. They're under attack. Zeke jumps out of the cart and orders his units into battle formation. Protect the injured and non-combatants. The soldiers follow his command and find themselves surrounded by hundreds of breeze weasels. The soldiers panic at the sheer numbers, shouting in confusion about what they are supposed to do. Zeke slices through a monster and yells for them to banish their doubts, calling the enemies nothing more than pathetic weasels. He continues piercing the small demons without hesitation. Blink moves forward, boosting everyone's courage. The creatures begin to run, but there are still so many of them. Even so, the soldiers strike back and start defeating the beasts. Zeke knows the monsters are not individually strong, but they wield wind magic. Fighting alongside Blink, he remarks that even someone as slow as Blink has noticed it. The monsters begin using coordinated wind attacks, and Blink grows alarmed, wondering if their numbers are increasing. Zeke mutters that the area may have become a breeding ground. Blink nervously asks whether this could be a colony, a domain where swarms of monsters live and breed collectively, essentially an overworld dungeon. Zeke nods grimly and says that if it truly has become a monster colony, it is beyond them. He senses the flow of mana and can hardly believe it. Behind the cart, Luke and Atri hide. Luke tries to calm her, telling her that his father and the soldiers are there. Meanwhile, the soldiers struggle against the beast's wind magic. Suddenly, a horse collapses and dies right in front of the children. Crying, Atri blames herself, saying it is her fault and calling herself cursed. The taboo child. She insists she should never have left the shack or broken the chain. She continues sobbing, questioning why she ever believed Zeke and calling herself foolish for hoping at all. She apologizes again and again. Luke remains silent, watching everything unfold. He knows that this number of monsters is far from normal. Suddenly, the beasts stop attacking. The soldiers mutter among themselves in confusion, thinking the monsters may have lost their nerve. Luke notices instead that the monsters are synchronizing and amplifying their mana. They line up and begin powering up. He shouts a warning about advanced magic, air bullet. The monsters fire their air bullets. Luke grabs Atri and hides behind the dead horse as a shattering sound echoes through the battlefield. When they open their eyes, an ice wall stands before them, protecting them. Zeke stands confidently and declares that it is time to teach the monsters exactly who the prey is in this hunt. His magic shocks everyone present. The soldiers ask one another if Lord Zeke cast the ice spell. Excitement spreads as they believe it wiped out most of the monsters. Then the ground begins to shake, and a giant paw emerges from below. Zeke knows that if this follows the usual game system, a breeding ground is guaranteed to have a boss monster. Just as Zeke thought, a massive boss appeared. Everyone gets scared, but Zeke remains firm. They're terrified because if the monsters use that coordinated attack like before, they're finished. He thinks about the coordinated attack, the Unison link. It's a special technique where multiple users synchronize and amplify their mana to unleash a much stronger attack. He never thought mere beast could pull it off. The boss monster starts summoning its mana and attacks the ice wall with full strength. The thick wall breaks. Luke, scared out of his mind, says their only choice is to run now. But then Zeke speaks up in his usual abusive tone. He reminds them that he's the demon child of Lagius. You know, just casual intimidation. Luke replies, terrified, that this is a weasel colony breeding ground with its boss, and they can even use a Unison link. Zeke admits it's true. However, there are still things he can do. Zeke steps forward and tells the big monster that he's seen all their tricks, but now it's his turn. Suddenly, he launches an ice shot, striking hard and wiping out a swarm of smaller monsters. The soldiers, seeing their lord in action, cheer in disbelief. They never imagined he could unleash such power. The massive monster ahead rages as its smaller beasts fall, but Zeke knows this is a battle for survival. There's no room for mercy. With his sword, he channels a spell called Icicle Lance. He fires ice spears straight at the giant creature. The soldiers roar in triumph, believing victory is theirs. But hold on, not so fast. The surviving monsters, led by the great beast, summon a powerful wind magic called Delta Storm. It shatters the icicle lance like glass. Atri notices that Zeke hasn't given up yet. In a sudden burst of power, he casts another spell, Icicle Ray, freezing every monster in sight. In moments, both great and small beasts turn into solid ice. The crowd stands frozen too, stunned by the sight before them. Luke stares in shock at the sudden saturation bombardment. He realizes something important. The Unison link is a special, precise technique, one that carries an inherent delay before it can be fired again. Luke understands now that Zeke must have known this all along. That's why he cast a spell designed to make the monsters waste their Unison link. And in that crucial gap, Zeke unleashed a massive wide-area annihilation magic. Luke watches, astonished by his strategy. His overwhelming talent leaves no doubt. He truly is the demon child of Lagias. Zeke declares that the show is over. He calls out the cowardly villager hiding behind the tree. When they return to the village, the people thank Lord Zeke with polite faces, but behind his back, they whisper. They call him the terrifying demon of ice. Zeke is stunned. He saved their lives, yet they repay him with fear. Then he laughs softly, saying he's a villain after all. What else could he expect? As he turns to leave, Atri runs after him, asking him to forgive the villagers, but Zeke tells her he doesn't care about the words of slaves. It makes no difference to him. He knows exactly who he is. He turns, removes the hood from Atri's head, and looking into her beautiful face, tells her not to lower her eyes. She must look ahead and move forward. Then he walks away, leaving Atri standing there, her eyes filled with a fading glimmer of hope. The villagers whisper among themselves, wondering what that girl could be talking about with the demon of ice. Blink steps forward and warns them to treat her well. She's Lord Zeke's favorite, and if they harm her, the demon of ice will return. Nothing like a good threat to keep everyone in line. Meanwhile, Atri remembers Zeke's words. She pulls out a small blade from her pocket, cuts the hair that falls before her eyes, and vows that she will surely become like him. In the cart, Luke watches Zeke, completely in awe. He tries to praise him, but Zeke doesn't let him get close. The moment Zeke raises his voice, he stops midway. A realization hits him. He's wasted precious time on an event that wasn't even part of the game. He wonders how this will affect his main plotline, but deep down, he knows one thing. If everything keeps following the game's path, he's destined to die. Lost in thought, he weighs his skills, his swordsmanship, his magic. He knows that if things continue this way, his death is practically guaranteed. It's no longer about whether it was in the game or not. What he truly needs now is real combat experience. Every fight, every encounter must make him stronger. Still, one thought lingers in his mind. What is the protagonist, Van, up to right about now? As their carts leave the village, another one enters from the opposite side. The driver glances back and tells the boy sitting behind him to put his sword aside. They're almost there. The boy shakes his head and laughs, saying the man must be joking. This sword is practically his soul. That single line says it all. He's a swordsman, a future hero. And that boy is none other than the protagonist of Wish Soul Van. As we know, Zeke is an average schoolboy who's obsessed with a game, but then things take a wild turn. He reincarnates as the villain of that very game. His fate is lined with deaths by heroes. To rewrite his deadly destiny, he pushes himself beyond limits, determined to become stronger than ever before. But his magic grows so powerful that even his sword can't bear it. One day, his father brings exciting news. They've discovered a dungeon on their land. He tells Zeke that the dungeon is filled with ancient weapons and magical items, a treasure trove beyond imagination, a true goldmine. Zeke wonders if this is the same legendary dungeon, Lagias dungeon, tackled at the end of the game. Deep down, he's certain. This is where the ultimate sword, the Ice God sword, lies hidden. With excitement, he thinks that the Ice God sword can withstand his overwhelming magic. This, he believes, is his ticket to becoming even stronger. His father explains that, following kingdom protocols, an official survey team will enter the dungeon first, a decision Zeke absolutely hates. The team arrives, and his father introduces them: the magician Marks, the knight Mia, the sage Glance. Glance introduces himself as the leader of the survey team, saying he's pleased to work for them. Zeke's father praises him warmly, calling him a man whose skills surpass his words, someone who even advises the guild's top magicians. He then tells Zeke that Marks and Mia are also experts in their fields and will surely prove themselves invaluable. Zeke is stunned as he looks at Glance. He knows. This is the same Glance who was a top-tier member of the hero's party, the man of integrity, a sage magician, and the leader of the first survey team. The one that ventured into the dungeon where everyone perished except him. It was a prologue event, long before the main story began, known as the Lagias Dungeon Survey Team Annihilation Incident. Glance took all the blame upon himself and vanished into seclusion. Yet the Lagias family kept accusing him of a failed expedition. That incident sparked a rift between Glance and the Lagias family, and it's also one of Zeke's death flags. Great, just what he needed. Zeke tells his father that he wants to join the survey team. Everyone in the room is shocked. Glance chuckles, saying it's encouraging but warns that they're short on guards. Dungeon expeditions can be brutal for newcomers. Zeke laughs, already expecting that response. After all, if no one's watching down there, the treasure will be all theirs. He challenges them, saying if they doubt him, then let him prove himself. What harm is there in taking him along? Besides, he doesn't really need a team anyway. Zeke's father beams with pride, telling him he's finally understanding his duties as the next lord. Zeke nods and replies that even more important, he's searching for a suitable sword to control his power. His father declares that Zeke will accompany the survey team. To crush these death flags, Zeke thinks, there are 2 clear objectives now. First, claim the Ice God's sword. Second, make sure the survey team gets out alive. After that, they arrive at the Anceli Forest dungeon within the Lagius domain. As the survey team moves ahead, Zeke shouts that they won't take a single step forward without his permission. Marks whispers to Glance that this young lord is beyond her patience, but he calms her, saying, "These are the orders of the lord. They must tolerate him." Moving forward, they spot a small, dilapidated building. They assume it's a dead end. Marks tries to search it using her Will-O-Wisp spell, but Zeke knows it's just a basic detection spell. Nothing significant appears. Confused, Mia asks what the structure is. She questions if it could be some kind of altar. The dungeon isn't very deep. Eventually, Zeke steps forward. As he approaches the ruined building and touches something, Mia shouts for him not to. She warns that any object could trigger a trap. The moment he touches it, a hidden warp zone appears, something no one expected at all. Zeke analyzes it. Based on its construction method, it's ancient, dating back to the late prehistoric civilization. Standard detection magic is mostly useless against devices from that era. The mechanism activates only under specific magical wavelengths. He shakes his head, muttering for them to remember it if they can. Zeke takes the lead, telling everyone to follow him. Mia tries to stop him, fuming at his arrogance. He's found just 1 warp zone and already thinks he's invincible, but Glance watches him closely, slowly understanding how he knows so much. As they move ahead, Zeke independently operates a mechanism that normally requires 3 people. Then he magically turns large stones, which could have crushed them from above, into ice. He bypasses the deadly trap effortlessly. Marks can't make sense of any of it, while Mia whispers that Zeke moves through the dungeon as if he's been here before. Glance shakes his head, disagreeing. He points to Zeke's legs. He's barely standing, his stamina draining fast. If someone truly knew the dungeon, they would never risk themselves like this. Zeke shouts at them to stop whispering. This isn't a picnic. Glance notices his attitude, a control so precise it never lets him drop his guard, yet he deliberately speaks in a way that keeps everyone at a normal pace. As they advance, Zeke thinks about how incredibly strong these people are. Mia, the knight, has not broken concentration the entire time, constantly ready for battle. Marks keeps her detection magic active non-stop, showing absolutely no sign of fatigue. And then there's Glance, with his unwavering magical flow and calm demeanor. Honestly, they might have made it this far without him. The game never explained how they got wiped out, but how could experts of their caliber possibly fall? Suddenly, Marks remarks that something is strange. They haven't encountered a single beast yet. Zeke knows she's right. He's been disarming traps for everyone, but the absence of any monsters is unusual. In the game, this place was swarming with enemies. A bad feeling creeps over him. He realizes he's already stepped into his death trap. Startled, his eyes fall on the Ice God's sword. Marks, sensing an incredible surge of magical power, rushes toward him, but Zeke stops her with his magic, shouting not to touch it. In rage, Mia tries to grab him, but Glance restrains her. He explains that he knows Zeke is protecting them. Mia can't grasp what he means. Suddenly, the path behind them closes. Lightning crackles near the sword, and a massive monster rises before them. An archdemon. Everyone freezes in fear. It's true. There is a legendary ancient magic species that exists. Glance urges them to move forward cautiously. Zeke launches 3 icicle lances at the monster. Mia, furious, snaps at him, demanding what he thinks he's doing, but he wonders, why be careful when nothing good is happening there? This first strike, he thinks, is just an initial survey, a test to gauge the enemy's capabilities. They all stare in shock as Zeke's attack fails completely. Confused, they wonder if the monster has activated some kind of anti-magic shield. An archdemon is rare even among exclusive game events. Standing before them is the very monster that once wiped out the original survey team. Suddenly, it slams the ground with tremendous force. The earth cracks again and again until Marks is thrown far away. Furious, Mia steps forward, declaring that if magic fails, she'll use her peerless sword dance. But the monster's shield knocks her back as well. Zeke stares in disbelief. Both physical and magical attacks have failed. Wounded, Marks rises and casts her Burn Ignis King Flame spell. Zeke is stunned. This is Flame Spirit King level magic, an ancient advanced spell far beyond his ice attribute, yet the demon forms a third shield, blocking the attack effortlessly. Glance charges in next, unleashing an evil-shattering flash with his magical staff. It's his signature move, a special attack combining all elemental magic. The explosion tears through the area, smoke and light flooding the battlefield. But as the haze clears, their hearts sink. The monster stands untouched. It has used 4 layers of shields, nullifying every strike, whether physical or magical. Their first priority is clear. They must destroy the monster's shields. Suddenly, the demon gathers a massive surge of power, shocking them all. Marks, Zeke, and Glance quickly form a barrier, an ice wall, a shield of protection. But when the demon's attack strikes, their defenses shatter instantly, sending them all flying backward. The power is insane, beyond anything they've faced before. As the monster prepares for another devastating blow, Glance, Mia, and Marks rise together, standing firm before its next attack. Zeke yells at the 3 of them, furious, asking if they've lost their minds. Do they know what they're doing? Mia just laughs, saying she calls herself a knight, but if she can't protect anyone, then what's the point of being one? Glance tells Zeke he has a grandson about his age. He hands him a diamond, explaining it's an ancient relic, a transfer orb that can warp anyone within its range. He says it's a shame. They could only charge it for 1. Zeke shouts back, demanding if they've all gone mad. Do they really expect him to run away alone? Mark steps forward, saying someone has to go back and call in reinforcements, or this whole disaster will mean nothing. Zeke looks at them, exhausted, drained, barely standing. He knows how to defeat this demon, but the fumes, the pressure, it's too much. He wonders, is ditching them and saving just his own skin really the only option left? Glance tells Zeke not to worry. They still have one last attack left. Zeke doesn't understand what he means until the 3 of them stand together, merging their powers to cast a Unison Link spell. It's a high-level technique that synchronizes and amplifies magic power. Zeke watches in astonishment as the 3 channel the immense energy. If they can pull this off, he realizes there might still be a way to win. He calls out to them, saying they need a little extra power to pull this off. Then he steps forward, joining their Unison Link circle. Marks gasps, shocked that Zeke could so effortlessly sync with them. Glance is amazed. It took them years to master this technique, yet Zeke slips into it with ease. He smiles at them and asks if they're wondering if he can't do what they can. Don't underestimate him. Then he commands them to move forward. This is their time to turn the tables. Every last one of them is a master combatant, and yet those 4 nigh impenetrable shields stood firm against their ultimate techniques. Just when it looked like they were completely stuck, Zeke thinks about why their attacks aren't working. He realizes he must uncover that very fact. They all get ready to strike the demon once again. Glance says that even with their magic powers amplified by Unison Link, there's no telling how far their combined strength will actually take them. He tells Zeke that if things go south, he should use teleportation and escape. Zeke says he's heard all this before and tells him to stay silent. There will be no need for an escape route at all, because now they possess a strength brought by the Unison Link. With full strength, Marks casts a spell, something she normally cannot use, but the magic boost makes it possible. She unleashes a Flame Emperor Phoenix on the demon. The demon raises a shield, but she channels all her power and melts it. Everyone watches in shock as the demon's first shield crumbles. Zeke wonders what's happening and realizes something. A shield can't withstand an attack unless hit by 2 or more attackers at the exact same time. With the Unison Link, it's like multiplying their power manifold, concentrating the force of all of them into a single strike. Brilliant, really. Now only 3 shields remain. Mia surges forward with full force. The demon tries to block her attack with its shield, but her speed has grown so much that she dodges effortlessly. Zeke watches in awe, realizing it's all because of the Unison Link. Suddenly, she lands a counter-art swordquake attack, shattering the demon's second shield. Everyone cheers. Not only has the shield broken, but the demon takes a small injury from her strike. Now it's Glance's turn. He boosts his muscles and unleashes a Paragon of Might, a supreme magic move. He lunges with lightning speed, breaking the demon's shield and landing a powerful blow to its stomach. He calls it the Evil Subjugation Technique. Now only the final shield remains. Glance looks at the attack ahead and whispers, hoping luck will be on Zeke's side. After linking with the other 3, Zeke feels an unbelievable surge of magic power. He lifts his sword and winds start swirling around him. He unleashes his icicle impact magic and strikes the monster, shattering its final shield. Everyone cheers at the sight, only the monster's body remains. Suddenly, Zeke's sword breaks. The monster lunges at him. Marks and Mia cast their defensive magic, but there isn't enough time. As the monster attacks, Zeke vanishes. Glance panics, but their 4-way link is still active. Zeke's voice echoes, reassuring them. In the blink of an eye, he reappears behind the demon, holding the magical sword firmly in his hands. They watch in astonishment, unable to grasp how he vanished from the enemy's sight. Then Glance realizes that he used the teleportation orb. Zeke draws the magical sword from the ground and unleashes his final Cocytus Rising spell, striking with such force that the monster is defeated instantly. They all exit the dungeon, elated and cheering. They tell Zeke they can't believe he defeated the legendary archdemon. It's pretty impressive. Zeke tells Mia to stop hovering around him. She's being annoying. Glance advises him to learn how to rely on others. He says that one should walk through the darkest path side by side with someone to light the way before them. He could become even stronger if he had someone like that by his side. Zeke reflects on his words, realizing that the real Zeke in the game never uses a Unison link with anyone. Interesting how things change when you're actually living it. Suddenly, an unfamiliar voice speaks inside his mind. Bound by the oath descendant of Lagius. Glance notices him and asks what's bothering him. Zeke stays silent, wondering if the voice is speaking directly into his head. The voice answers that it will fill him with power.
Here I am,